Hello, we are live. I'm so excited to be here today with my friend and colleague, Andrea Weckerle. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. I think this is the first live you and I are actually having. I know we attended conferences together before, but now I get to be a guest on your show. So this is a,
Yes,
a
and
big
so
deal
a
for
little
me.
behind the scenes, often Andrea actually takes the show and turns it into a blog post every week. So she and I have been working on this for a while, but we've known each other a very, very long time. So I'm really excited to share you with the audience because you're so smart, insightful.
Oh dear.
I think for this particular issue, as we were talking about it and kind of preparing for this, you were so on fire with all kinds of ideas and thoughts, and your background really fits it. So I just would like to introduce you to my audience. And so I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
And those of you who know Andrea know that she's very bright. She has an amazing background. She teaches at Georgetown. She is like in Washington, D.C. Yeah, really impressive background. So, and we worked together for years and years on a nonprofit that you started and a book that you wrote. Just a lot of things that we've done together. So you want to
You
talk
were
a little bit about what you're doing these days? Like what is your focus these days?
Yeah, so my focus really is on, well, I teach at Georgetown, as you said, and I teach in the
Mhm.
Integrated Marketing Communications program there, the graduate program, and I teach ethics. So I'm really big on ethics, which is, as you know, Kami, when I ran Civilization, the nonprofit you were on the board on that for very, very long time, ran that for over 10 years, but also looked at how social media impacts professions' lives, the world as such, and the big impact it's had on everyday living. Regardless of who you are, where you are on the planet. And now, of course, we have AI to add that into the mix, and it's become even more accelerated, more exciting, and scary in some
Mhm.
ways. So this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. And so obviously I'm a communicator. I have a law background, and I try to combine my legal training with my communications background to basically be a problem solver for individuals and organizations from a conflict resolution, reputation perspective, if you will.
You have a degree in conflict resolution too. I mean, come
Yeah, it's
on.
a multidisciplinary graduate program that combines communications and ADR, so alternative dispute resolution. So that's kind of my thing. And as I said,
Mhm.
ethics I care about. Oh, and I also teach brand conflict communication right now at Georgetown. So I'm I guess a multidisciplinary person that's really trying to just make
Mhm.
things better out there for folks.
Yeah, so you can see why I had Andrea come on because this is actually literally right up her alley. So if you're here, if you're dropping by, definitely let us know you're here in the chat. Ask questions if you want. We will be happy to answer them if you are here. So yeah, really excited to have you here. Let's talk about the sort of the dawn of this. So one of the things we were talking about in preparing for this is how much this reminds us of the early days of social media. And then you did, of course, as you do, you went into a deep dive research about when did social media start? So do you want to kind of fill us in on
Yeah,
what you came up with?
yeah. So I've been around a long time, a little bit longer than you even, Cami. So we've been around. I don't want to speak for you, but we've been around for a long time, and so we remember the pre-internet days, which I think is very useful, having a foot in both worlds and knowing what it was like beforehand. But you and I
Mhm.
started blogging, I want to say 2005, 2006, something like that. And we were
Yeah,
really on the front of all of that. But I was
2005.
curious, like, yeah, I'm sorry. I think you cut out. Oh dear, I can't hear.
All right, you're fine. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh,
If
okay,
I
okay, there we
might
go.
blink out, you just keep going because you are not blinking out like I am. So go.
Oh, okay, okay, fantastic, fantastic. So I was curious, when did social media platforms actually start? And this is what I was looking up the other day.
Mhm.
And it turns out that the very first one was 6 Degrees. So do you remember hearing about that? 6 Degrees?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that
A
was
separation,
in,
Kevin
get this.
Bacon.
Yeah, and get this was in 1997. So
What?
26 years ago. That's a lifetime ago. Um, I
Yeah.
was not on 6 Degrees, but I was on, kind of embarrassing now, a little cringy, MySpace. Were you on
Me too.
MySpace? Yeah,
I had a
okay.
MySpace, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
And I
exactly,
also, I was
exactly.
telling you, I had a GeoCities too. I don't know how many of you had a GeoCities.
Oh my
I had a
goodness.
GeoCities as well.
Yeah. And so if you think about that, if you think about 26 years, right? Or maybe
Mhm.
maybe 1 or 2 years before that, people who were born in the last 26 years are digital natives, right? They
Mhm.
don't know anything else but the fact that social media has been out there. They're conversant in it. And then that's contrasted with, as I was saying, you and I have been around before that. We are
Mhm.
digital immigrants. And I think that I think there is a benefit to that, seeing how the world existed beforehand. We are bilingual as a regard. And so we're able to really connect those two groups, the ones who are pre internet and the digital natives. But it also has an impact on what AI means now, right? None of us are really digital immigrants, if you think about it, or we can't afford to be. We really need
Mhm.
to be digital natives when it comes to AI. We need to be conversant in this immediately and learn the tools and use them on a daily basis, business, personally, whether we want to or not. So that's kind of how I look at it in terms of the urgency of embracing this new technology, because it's not going
Mhm.
to be a question anymore of somebody wanting to. It's baked into literally everything that we do.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think people realize how much. I mean, one of the things I looked into is that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as far as the intellectual property side of it. But interestingly, I went back and looked and see like when did we start talking about all of this? And it was 1965 when the Copyright Office started to say, well, if you create something with a computer, can it be copyrighted? I think that's really interesting because we have been moving through this, and I'm going to bring us into AI this way. We've been moving through this all along to this point where we are now. And we all think, oh, AI is this new thing because, I don't know, ChatGPT came out, but it has been baked in behind the scenes on a lot of things we've already been using. And I think that's something people don't realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the things that we're concerned about with AI, for example, privacy usage, that's
Mhm.
been in existence for a very, very long time. Concerns around that, or legal concerns around that. Now we need to adopt those concepts,
Mhm.
though, with this new technology that's we're facing
Right,
on
and
a
it's
daily.
a challenge, right? It's been a huge challenge for all of us. There's been a lot of changes too, and I mean I think that's the scariest part. Like this has come out so fast with so many changes. You can't even keep up with it. The tools are changing. The the companies that provide it are changing. I mean, for those of you who don't live and breathe AI every day like I do, there was this huge controversy over OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, because they fired the CEO. Well, it made mainstream news, so you may have heard about that. And immediately, Microsoft hired them in as their, on their team, and then everybody at OpenAI decided they were going to quit if Mr. Altman did not come back. So
But
that's
now
what
he's
happened.
back. But now he's
He's
back.
back. They fired the entire board except for one person, Arturo, I think it was Art, and that person is supposed to be the bridge between the old board and the new board. I don't know why he got to stay, but there's one person, and they put two more people in the role on the board. And here's the funny thing about OpenAI: it's a nonprofit. Andrea, I think you know that, and so nonprofit boards are slightly different than publicly traded company boards. So I thought that was really interesting because they were just trying to. It sounded like the board was trying to act in the best interest of society, not just the company.
And I think some of the concerns around that, and it's still a developing story,
Mhm.
so to speak. Altman is
Yeah.
back now. Microsoft seems to be a temporary loser in this story.
Mhm.
Um, the concern is
Mhm.
around something that they created having to do with artificial general intelligence, and
Mhm.
then us potentially moving towards um, a higher version of that, which is artificial super intelligence. So we're at AGI right now, and we're most likely moving towards ASI, artificial superintelligence. And that has the thing that has people both excited and terrified, because ASI is intelligence that surpasses that of human intelligence, even the smartest humans.
Right. And we don't know why he was fired. I mean, there's been some talk since then that may not be the reason, but they're spinning it. So who knows?
Right. Exactly.
But the truth is I think it was a communication error, between him and the board. There was something that was broken there because they're moving so fast. Like everything's moving so fast. And if you're a board member and it's your responsibility, I've been one, so I know it's your responsibility to make things don't go off the deep end. You may make some quick snap decisions. And here's the thing, we have to move really quickly, but contemplatively. So a couple of other organizations have also stepped in to talk about those kinds of regulations and guidelines. And so one of them that is kind of recent and applies to us, we can talk about the bigger ones too, but because I know Biden did a executive order, the EU, UK, and there was another one. China and the US put together a memorandum of agreement about how we have to watch out for all these things and make sure that we don't make bad decisions with it.
Right.
So that was interesting, I thought. And then, of course, PRSA, which is the Public Relations Society of America, which is one of the big communications organizations. They came out with their guidelines last week as well. And so I wanted to just talk about that for just a minute, because I think having some guidelines and bringing it back to the creator point of view and those of us who are creators, that's kind of where I want to keep this today.
Yeah. So PRSA, I had a look at that when it came out, which wasn't, in the last 2 weeks. And I looked at it again last night because I knew we were doing the live stream today. And I was actually really, really impressed with what they did. It seemed for a non-binding document, obviously it's non-binding, it's not legally actionable, so to speak. It was really comprehensive and really insightful. And so I think they should really be proud of themselves. The document serves as a guiding framework for best practices in preventing and managing potential ethical challenges that may arise from the improper use of AI. And what I liked about the framework is that it really nicely balances the exciting opportunities that AI presents communications professionals with the very real dangers that irresponsible or self-serving use can lead to. And they have, what's great about the document is that they have an excellent list of examples of improper use and then also guidance on proper use. And that's from page 4 onwards of the document. So I really encourage everybody, regardless of if you're a public relations professional or not, but if you're a communicator or content creator, look at this document. It's really superb.
Yeah, and I'll add it to the stage here so that you can see it. So it's a great PDF that has it's really very easy to look at too. So they've done a good job at the design of it, I guess you could say. Hold on a minute, I don't want to.
Yeah, are you able to scroll down to a particular page or not?
Because it also has links in it. Yeah, I'm gonna scroll down. Hold on a minute. I just want you to see. So this is just the cover. Actually, I'm gonna make this a little smaller so we can go faster. I just want you to see it. We're not going to read it today. I'm going to tell you what I did with it, because last night I didn't have as much time as you did last night. I had a bunch of things I had to do with. I took my daughter shopping to Walmart because she needs something for an upcoming event. But yeah, I know. It's like, can I go shopping at Walmart? I'm like, I have work to do.
Yeah. See there, for example.
What I like about it is kind of, and you can't read this. Yeah. But right here, how they start with this, they look at this, and I'll make it as big as I can so you can kind of read it.
That's what I'm talking about. That's where they talk about examples Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So this is one of the code of ethics. It's called free flow of information, which is protecting and advancing truthful information to serve the public interest. And so they did this really cool table where they said, this is how it relates to this part of the ethical guidelines. So PRSA already has an ethics code, right? So they took the ethics codes that is current And they said, this is how this applies to our ethical code. And then they talked about examples of improper use and guidance on proper use. And they did that for each one of the 5 ethical areas that it kind of applied to.
Mhm.
So me being me, and of course, this being an AI discussion, I took this because I also use this really cool AI that not many people are talking about called Claude. A lot of people talk about ChatGPT all the time. But what's great about Claude, and we were talking about this beforehand, that's why it's all the way at the bottom, is that I took that PDF and I dropped it into Claude,
Mhm.
and it summarized it for me immediately, the whole document. So I read through it, and it was good, but I felt like I needed a little bit more information. So once it was in there, because Claude takes it in there and it takes all of the text, then I can start asking questions of the document. So I asked it, what's the name of it? And it gave me the full title of the report, because I was like actually creating our notes for this and I didn't want to have to type all of that out myself. So I had it do it for me. And then I said, what are the code provisions that are included? And it gave me the 5 code provisions that were included in a list. So that makes it easier for me to scan through and go, okay, it's covering 5. That's how I knew it was 5, instead of having to go count them because they didn't number them. So it's a really nice thing. But again, pretty basic, like what does competition mean, right? What does this mean? And so then I asked it, what are the examples of improper use? Because I saw that it had the table. And so I asked it, and it gave me the improper use for each one of the ethical guidelines. So for free flow of information, of course, AI tools can do outdated, false, or damaging content. So we've talked a lot about hallucinations on this channel and ways that AI is not really giving us good information sometimes, because it's just taking what's out there and boiling it down. So it doesn't have like access to the latest data, although they have moved it up for the paid version. That's what's nice about Claude, by the way. You can put in your data there and it's looking at this document. So I could never have OpenAI do this for me at this moment, which is amazing. I would have to like copy and paste the entire document into OpenAI, and then it could do it, or ChatGPT. So the next one was disclosure of information, and that's implementing like what we call AstroTurf, or letter writing campaigns to legislators that misrepresent the actual public sentiment. Gosh, it's been so long since I've heard the word AstroTurf, but it's basically showing like fake support for something that isn't really out there, right?
Yeah.
Competition, that's where a hiring manager relies solely on AI to screen job applicants in a way that limits diversity and inclusion. I thought that was interesting. What did you think about that?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, I mean, this is the people focused on creating this document really wanted to have a living, breathing document that is actionable and that serves as a guide for practitioners out there. That, you know I know I downloaded it and I'm going to be referring to it regularly because I think it's really content rich. So yeah.
Well, and we're going to have a little fun time with that here in a minute too, but not with this specifically, but kind of the same thing. We're going to do something similar. Safeguarding confidences was good. An employee accidentally leaks sensitive information, internal information, by uploading it into an AI platform. So that is interesting to me. So if I was writing this document before it got released and I'd used one of these AIs to help me, analyze it or write it, that could be a problem, right? Because it might get out to the public before we're done with it.
Yeah, exactly. The Wall Street Journal came out with an article. When was that? What is it? Today's the 30th. Came out with an article a couple of days ago, which I would recommend people look at. It was called The Do's and Don'ts of Using Generative AI in the Workplace. And they talk about some of the things that, professionals need to look out for. And one is obviously not inadvertently violating confidential information, that sort of thing. In addition to, a bunch of other stuff like being aware of bias and not blindly trusting AI results. But they talk about the sharing of sensitive business information with public programs, for example. And so I think that goes to the point of accidentally doing something. There is an intentional misuse of confidential information or using AI to injure people. But there's also the accidental the accidental misuse. And that's something that all of us really, really need to pay attention to, because we may not know how AI works. And so my recommendation is always that people take the position of being more conservative rather than blindly jumping into something, even though all of these tools are really, really fun. But take the time to find out what the privacy policies are, what the use policies are, because it's one thing if you're just using your own information. Okay, fine. Maybe that's a risk you're willing to take. But if you're a professional communicator or you're dealing with client data, you don't want to be the person who's inadvertently released information that the world is not supposed to have access to. And that's a liability issue. It's an ethics issue. It's just very, very ugly and muddy.
It's true. I mean, it used to be that the worst that we could do is release information accidentally into the public, or send out an email to everyone that you weren't supposed to send out or something like that.
Which is bad enough, but yeah.
It is bad enough. And the last one was enhancing the profession, which is the fifth one that they kind of related it to. And they said the things that are bad for that are using AI to write a blog post about a medical issue without citing credible. So credible sources are huge for AI, because there aren't a whole lot of AIs that do that. One, and I didn't put it in our notes, and I'm making notes as we go, because we just talked about that article that I also don't have a link to yet. But there's another AI called Perplexity, and Perplexity is a search engine tool AI, and it actually does AI it rewrites things for you, just like ChatGPT would, but it goes out into the internet and it cites sources.
So like real sources. So not the
real sources.
Hallucination that everybody needs to be concerned about. Kami, you've talked about hallucination once, I think, on one of your earlier live streams, right?
I did.
Do people know
but not everybody listens to all the live streams. Do you want to explain it?
So hallucination is basically when an AI tool, let's say ChatGPT, and it's getting better all the time, but it wants to serve. It's not sentient by any means, but it wants to serve the user. So if it doesn't know something, very often it will fabricate information and sound very credible in doing so. And so that's called hallucinating. It's like you're on magic mushrooms or something, you're making this crap up. So basically, it's a very nice way of saying, don't blindly rely on what you see. Use it as a tool. And I think that's one of the things that PRSA talks about, you and I, as professional communicators, talk about the fact that AI is it's not just one thing, but AI is a wonderful tool for everybody to be able to using. But you can't just close your eyes. You can't just say, hey, guess what? I'm going to blindly trust something. You still have to carry responsibility for what you put into it, and also what you take out of it, and then how it affects AI and the rest of society, as a result. Yeah,
it's like when I was a little girl, I like to just authoritatively tell my mother things sometimes, she'd ask about something, and I'd say, oh yeah, that is, whatever. I mean, whatever it was, something I learned in school or didn't learn in school, just made up. And after a while, she realized sometimes I wasn't exactly telling her the truth. I wasn't on purpose. I was just trying to sound smart or something. And she said, so she'd start asking me, so is that really true? Or did you just make that up?
Are we going to create a new term? Do you remember Stephen Colbert's truthiness, right? So now years ago, which was brilliant, but now we're going to have Kami truth. Right, Kami truth, a brand new term out there. Kami truth.
Yeah, it was funny, she'd ask me. I'd tell her the truth. Then she goes, "Is that true, or did you just make that up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just made it up." I said, "I think that's what it is, though. I mean, I really think that's what it would be."
Yeah, but this goes back to the other thing that I've been talking about for years, right? It's critical thinking skills. That you can have the best tools out there, and we rely on tools, and we have every right to, but it doesn't abdicate our responsibility to hone our own critical thinking muscles, because after all, the data that is input into these are human driven, and humans sometimes make mistakes. And so we really need to say, well, wait a minute, if I see some data coming out, does it pass the smell test? Does it make sense to me? Maybe it's accurate and I just don't get it, but always look at things critically and say, well, wait a minute. Is this something I can stand behind, right? So critical thinking skills, even in an AI world, or possibly even especially in an AI world, are going to be more important than ever. You know,
AI skills you learned from your mother whenever you grew up, right? Like always like trust but verify. Remember that?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I do. Trust but verify, right? And it's a fine
Yeah.
line because you don't want to go through the world cynical, but you can't just, you can't just sit there and say, well, AI said something. Are you kidding
Well,
me?
I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave the PRSA code of ethics there. I think we've gone through it to kind of give you an idea, but it's a good way to think of things. And so, but I do want to talk about a couple of case studies that's happened recently, because I think people say, well, when is this going to happen? Is it already happening? What's going on? And one of the things that was just on the AI thing, is that using AI to collect personal data for manipulative social media profiling. So a couple of things right now is that you can grab, people's likenesses, people's voice, people's everything right now on social media. So, especially if you're a public figure, and there have been a couple. So one that just happened was a deep fake propagandist who used a tool called 11 Labs, which I've used too. I've completely duped
Kami, is there something you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I've duped my own. I didn't do this. I do, although I did something else. We're going to do it in a minute. It's pretty funny. So stay by, guys. We're about to have a lot of fun, and so
Kami's going to have a lot of fun.
Like legal talk. We're coming on something fun here. So they did a deep fake of Jill Biden, and they had her. And I'm not going to play it because I could get copyright striked, or I don't know what would happen to me. I don't know if you can copyright strike something that's fake. Anyway, or I could get in trouble with YouTube because this also plays on YouTube. Anyway, so they took Jill Biden and they did a deep fake of her because she's done lots of speeches. So you can take her voice, and of course, plenty of photos are out there of her. Also videos of her moving, so you can kind of get but they took an actual video of her and they put it into another tool called HeyGen, HeyGen. And HeyGen is, you can take any photo and make it talk. So, I mean, I think you've seen this on like something like TikTok or whatever.
All over.
Yeah. All babies are saying, "Baby, don't hurt me no more." Like that. I've seen that. Like, and you put your child there and have it sing this song. It's weird. I would not put your child, by the way, into an AI for lots of reasons, because number one, it's really funny and great, but like they do grow up and hate you for that. So you got to be careful. So I was really careful with my kids. I don't know about you, but I know you were too.
You know me, I try to put as little personal data out there as possible.
I mean, Andrea is more careful than I am, so I'll just give you that. We've known each other a long time. I'm the brave one. Not brave. You're brave too, but I mean, as far as putting stuff out there,
I'm the cautious one. Yeah.
Yes, you're very cautious. I mean, every conversation starts with, and there's an NDA on this conversation.
Okay,
like,
you are totally all right, Kami. See, this is the problem. Kami is spilling secrets here, and she's perpetrating false information. I'm going to call it misinformation, not disinformation. But yeah. No, but it is true. I mean, you need to your point. It does make sense to reiterate somebody's policy, their personal policy or their work policy about privacy usage. So, but it is true. When Kami and I have conversations, sometimes we're like, okay, this is definitely off the record type of stuff. So
all the way in deep throat. All the way in the deep. No, I mean, but I think it's good. I think you're right. It's good to do that because and we've had this too on social media, there's an over familiarity that happens. And like, you kind of think that the person you're talking to has the same, I don't know, what am I looking for? The same limits, I guess, boundaries, whatever you want to call it, as you do. And you can step over those. I've done this a couple of times, like very rarely, but, shared something out that somebody shared to me. And then they're like, please take that down now. And I'll do it like immediately. That's something I'll drop everything to make sure that happens. But rarely I share something without asking. But I figured if it's already out there, then I can share it. But anyway, it just depends. So
just real quick, what I thought was really, really interesting, and I found this in the classes that I teach, but then also reading about this. Back when mommy bloggers, and I mean that in a respectful sense, because these were really a lot of the very first influencers out there. It started with mom bloggers and then parent bloggers, and it grew from there.
But all creators, they don't call themselves bloggers or influencers.
Right. But I mean, that was the origins way back in the Stone Ages of social media. But when when you and I started, but back then, of course, they talked about parenthood, motherhood, and very often they shared very personal stories of their children to bond with other parents going through the same thing. And that was all fine and good. But what ended up happening is that some parents shared more than their, as you mentioned, that they're then growing up, teenagers, young adults are looking back going, you really didn't need to share this thing about my puberty issues, or I don't know, whatever embarrassing things are out there. Why did you do that? And depending on what the technology is like, if it was a blog that literally nobody read, even then, okay, there are places to still find it. But most people, like 99% of people, aren't going to know how to access that information if you take it down.
So way back. Sorry, I shouldn't.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Kami. But it's a secret. Don't tell everybody about that. But yeah, exactly. But the idea is once it's online in digital form, right, it lasts forever. And so what's interesting, again, talking to my students, talking to young people these days, is that a lot of them have become more private and more intentional about what they share. And the assumption is, like you said, that if they're sharing certain things about themselves, that they're open to sharing everything, but they're very intentional about, okay, I'm willing to share this thing or this corner of my life, but not everything. And so there's a different mindset because they have seen the risks and the dangers that this free for all can present.
Yeah, their parents. I'm sorry, Gen X. We are just sorry. We've made all the mistakes, guys. But yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's really important. They do a more curated style, but that's really the danger of AI, because AI kind of doesn't have those. Okay, that's the one thing that AI definitely doesn't have. It doesn't have those filters.
I was about to say.
It's just trying to achieve an end, and it'll go whatever way that it needs to. You have to put the guardrails in to make it work. And of course, at the company level, at the governmental level, I mean, there's so many places it has to happen. We're talking today sort of about the personal level because that's kind of what I think that you guys need right now. There's very little that you can do except for support regulations or not, but understanding, I'm not going to go deep into this, but, I was listening to something today about, Russia having an AI to decide whether it's going to send all the missiles to the United States. So if they're dead, if they're all dead and they, whatever, it's going to send every missile over here. Well, it's crazy. I mean, do you really want AI to be in charge of nuclear warheads? No. So you also don't want it to be in charge of your personal information and to share it any way that it wants to, right? So
that was really uplifting, Kami. And I like the way I like the way you talked about, brought in nuclear proliferation along with AI. So
just
in case the world isn't a scary enough place,
moving on.
Yeah. No, but it is true. I mean, that's some of the things we have to think about. It's not just something about how do we use ChatGPT to, I don't know, write a blog post, help us with a blog post headline, for example. There are other implications around that are really big.
Yeah, like really big. So I just thought I'd go for the biggest one.
Boom, biggest one. No pun intended there.
Yeah. So Jill Biden. This was really actually done as a stunt. So that's number one. But these things can be done as not stunts and be very serious. So they took Jill Biden's videos and a couple of B-roll types of things. So they didn't have it on her face the whole time, which they only needed a couple of seconds of her looking like she was saying something and then to continue talking. And then they used 11 Labs, which 11 Labs is, spelled out the word 11, 11labs.com. is a tool that you can upload a bunch of audio into it, and it can actually duplicate somebody's voice, including your own or somebody else's, and you have to pay for it. But it's like, I think I paid $12 to do it for me. Maybe it was $12 a month, but I'm just saying it's cheap to get it done. And in fact, I had a friend who reached out to me and said, I tried to do what you did, but it doesn't sound like me at all. But I said, yeah, you just need to upload a few more samples. You upload like up to 25 samples and it dupes your voice. It's crazy.
Have you looked at how they use this data? I mean, the tool sounds
Yeah.
amazing, right? But have you looked at what they do with the data once you upload
Yes.
it? Like who owns
So
it?
they
Okay.
don't use it for training. If you put your own voice in, they are doing their training from other things. They actually have voices that you can choose to use as well,
Right.
that are like, just standard voices like businessman or businesswoman. They have like names like that for them.
What
And
what
but
what 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 is a businessman or a businesswoman? I'm so curious. Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, you can go back into the back end of it. I'll show it to you sometime. But you go back there and you can choose what you want it to use for that. And what's great about 11 Labs, I guess, great, I don't know, but the inflection is there. Like it sounds a lot more human than any of these voices I've heard before. Like it's probably the best one. I know. I mean, I heard it the other day. It's like considered the best one out there right now. They just have done a lot of training. So they've gone out on the internet and grabbed all of our voices and thrown it into their model. They've scraped all of the YouTube videos in the world probably and put it into their model. And they've created, categories for these and made them into voices. But anyway, the point is that you can make one for yourself. So somebody went out there and took a bunch of Jill Biden's speeches and put it into 11 Labs and created a Jill Biden voice. And then they wrote a script for her that was opposing the whole Israeli Hamas conflict, like opposing Israeli. They were it was pro Hamas. Let's put it that way. And she was talking about how she didn't think that what her husband was doing was the right move, and she talked negatively against her husband. And I will say that the phraseology, there was a curse word near the end of it. It was clear to me it wasn't her because she would never say those things, which by the way tells you how important it is if you're a public figure for you to be known as somebody who, and that people understand you. And I just said the title of Mark Schaefer's book, Known. But if you want to read Mark Schaefer's book, Known, that will give you some ideas of how to do that. But I just feel like you have to be known by your people. So like my voice was out there and it said something that was so out of character for me, my only real protection during AI times is that you know me enough to know that I would never say that.
Or rather, and to your point, because I know you talk a lot about the power of community, the importance of community, right? That your community then can step up and say, wait a minute, I know that Kami would never say something like this. She didn't say something like this. This is somehow fabricated, and then come to your assistance in addition to making sure that your positions are known. Because if somebody doesn't know you, or if you're taking, let's say you have especially in the geopolitical, the social, certain social movements, people are very, split on particular areas. If there's somebody who wants to take up an issue with you and criticize you, they're not going to know what you stand for ahead of time, except for some sort of fake information they may see about you that's being used for intentional nefarious purposes online. So knowing, having that presence, as you said, very clear on your blog, on your socials, being very consistent about that, and then having your community come to your aid is really, really critical in all of these things happening.
That is so good that you said that. And I mean, we've been talking about that for crisis communication for years. I mean, working with brands, I've worked with branded communities that have come to the aid of a brand that I was working with in huge problems. So I would just say, this is the same, except for the stakes are a little bit higher because it's the fakes are more obvious. Like, so our heart, I mean, not more obvious, they're more difficult to, they're unobvious is maybe what I'm trying to say. So right now, like if you get a phishing message that wants you to give, gift cards to, by the way, that happened to me. Somebody texted me and asked me to give gift cards to my pastor. And the thing it said was from my pastor. It was to a text to me. And it said his name and everything. And he goes, I need some gift cards because we need these. And I'm like, gift cards? Like, I know he would never ask for gift cards. Like, no, that's not how this works. Like if he needed that, he'd say, go to the website and, we need like a couple of, whatever people to do this. So I sent him a thing and said, you've been hacked. Because that's basically what happened is somebody had hacked him, because it's easier and easier and easier for us to click those hack links. Because guess what? We look at them and say, oh, there's a misspelling there. That doesn't sound right. Oh, look, that's off. AI is going to change that because there will be no misspellings. It will sound very native and normal and smart.
So yeah, that brings up the point too about, we're talking about both the power of technology and the downside of technology. And so, sometimes you see two camps about this. You see the folks who consider themselves like technology optimists, and everything's great, and we're going to sit there and make a new society. And we know how well that worked back in the blogging days. I remember sitting there going, "Are you kidding me? There's good guys and bad guys, and the bad guys, throw a wrench and stuff. So it's not all going to be utopia. The technology ain't going to change the way people act."
No.
But and then you've got the technology pessimists who are afraid of any change, and they sit there and, oh my goodness, we've got to put the genie back in the bottle, which doesn't work. It's not going to work. We're moving forward whether we want to or not. So I consider myself a technology realist. Somebody who says, let's look at the good sides that this offers, AI, whatever it is, right? Let's look at that, but let's also think about what could go wrong so that we can manage it effectively from an ethics perspective and from a regulatory perspective. The regulatory law tends to sit there and it's always a little slow.
Very slow, because it has to be precedents, right? And that takes some time.
Or decisions, and people have to come together, governments have to come together. But when it comes to ethics with AI or what companies can do, I think that's really where we need to push so much energy and funding right now, and talk about what can we individually do, and what do we need to demand from, let's say, social media platforms, from companies, best practices, policies, things like that. So ethics, and also how do we build trust? With the last decade has seen a really a huge degradation of trust on across all spectrums. And that's really, really bad, because it creates even greater division. And pretty soon you don't know who to believe. If the image I see could be fake, or the voice, right? So building trust is going to be super, super important. And you do that. You mentioned one of these things earlier, through consistency, right? If you are consistent in what you present, people are going to say, this is what you do. This is who, what Kami stands for example, right? Is it consistent with her or not? But the other way you do that is by not always taking the easy way out. And when it comes, for example, I know we're going a little off your topic here.
No, I mean, it's good, because we're going to do another case study in a minute, and this actually applies to that. Go.
Okay, fantastic. So companies, for example, very often, or websites, they have privacy policies on there, and this isn't to get rid of those privacy policies, but they have to also, privacy policies need to address AI usage, and in my opinion, there should be a specific AI usage, even if it overlaps with, let's say, a traditional privacy policy, front and center on a website. It shouldn't be something on page 100 or in little micro font. It's got to be out there so that customers, visitors, everybody can see, hey, this is how the website does this. Not that I have it on my website yet. I know it. I haven't done it yet. But what is your use of AI? How do you use it? Do you use it in an ethical way or not? And having that out there is super, super important. And at some point, it's also going to be
and for us, we could say something like, we follow the PRSA ethical guidelines for the use of AI, and actually put a link to that. That would be something you could do right now that wouldn't even take a lot of time.
No, that's absolutely a great idea. And so, I think so too. I'll talk to you later, but we'll put a link on our website and say, hey, guess what? This great document here. And the other thing is that people are, like I said, they really want to be able to trust somebody. So, trust is something that is tied into reputation. And I know that communicators, especially public relations communicators, reputation is gold, right? And those organizations and brands and companies that are building trust now in the AI world, they're going to have such a competitive advantage over others that are footloose with that sort of thing, whereas like, well, we'll figure it out. I know I want to know that a company is looking at these things from a serious perspective and saying, wait a minute, how do we harness this technology? But how do we not just use it for our own gain? How do we make sure that our clients, our communities, our employees, our contractors are best served through these tools?
So let's talk about that, because what if you're like a very big media company that is very well respected and known, a gold name in the media, and then you I don't know, start using AI in a sketchy way. And we actually know somebody who did that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So this week, for those people so for those people who haven't heard the story yet, Sports Illustrated is in a little bit of a uncomfortable situation this week. Futurism, a science and technology news site, wrote a story about how Sports Illustrated apparently published an article by somebody that doesn't really exist. And it was somebody's
the article exists, but not
the article, not the person. So it was written by somebody called Drew Ortiz, who seems not to exist in real life, and is basically a profile photo that's available on a website that sells AI generated headshots. So there was a concern about that, and then Futurism claims that 2 anonymous sources within Sports Illustrated told them that they were involved in creating the AI generated articles, not necessarily the content of the articles, but involved in the entire process. And I suppose that isn't inherently evil if in fact that was visibly shared. Let's say Sports Illustrated were to say, hey, guess what? We use AI for headline generation to assist us with headline creation to make it, really resonate with our audience. That's okay. Exactly. That's a tool. Why not, right?
Right.
But to allow readers to think that this was an authentic article written by somebody else, that's pretty misleading. So then what ended up happening is Futurism contacted the magazine's publisher, the Arena Group, and they said, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? And after that, these AI generated articles suddenly disappeared. And then a spokesperson provided an article saying that, or a statement saying that the articles in question were product reviews and that they were licensed content from an external third-party company. They threw the name out there. So basically threw them out of under the bus and said, it wasn't us, it was our third-party contractor. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oops. And that,
but that's a contractor of theirs.
Yeah. And
that our supplier, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, exactly. But they were obviously in business with them, and that this third-party company had assured them that all of the articles in question were written and edited by humans. But get this, but that they didn't use the author's real name for privacy reasons. It just sounded like such a bizarre thing to me. It's like, if I'm writing an article, unless it's on a really sketchy or controversial topic that would put, let's say, myself or my family in danger, I don't know, some sort of political, geopolitical thing, or I lived in a part of the world where I'm in danger, why not put your name to something? So I don't think I don't think this is what Sports Illustrated generally covers. So anyway, then that was the argument they gave. And then the Sports Illustrated union heard about this, and they released a statement on X talking about how they were horrified by the Futurism story, that, and if true, this was basically violated everything that we believe in as journalists, that it violated the trust of the readers, and so on and so forth. So this is still kind of ongoing right now, but it's right now, Sports Illustrated is being dragged through the mud. The parent company is being dragged through the mud because of not staying on top of who's using AI for what purposes. I'm going to assume that it wasn't intentional, that nobody really wanted to mislead the readers. But if I'm a Sports Illustrated subscriber, for example, I want to think that real people are writing these stories. I want to have that human touch. And that was the other thing. I think you and I last couple of days were talking about the fact that the human touch is going to be so much more important. AI is out there. It's this fantastic thing that we should avail ourselves of the opportunities it provides. But at the same time, there's going to be some sort of, a growth in fake stuff. Fake this, fake that, synthesize this, a tongue twister. And so people are going to want to know, hey, wait a minute, am I dealing with a real human here? Is there somebody really behind this? And we're going to be more and more hungry for having that human touch. And I think that's also a business opportunity then from some organization saying, hey, this is on the website, this is our AI policy, this is how we use AI. We don't use it for strategy, for example, right? We're going to use it for headlines and assistance and a variety of things. There's a bazillion ways that it can be used effectively. But at the end of the day, you're going to be working with a real human. You have our attention, you have our strategy, our commitment to you as a company, as a brand, that we're going to serve you well. And I think that's going to be such a differentiator for folks.
I totally agree with that. I think that's so well said. But there's so many ways to be evil. So I'm wondering, what are all the ways that we can be evil? So we're going to take a few minutes here, like in a speed round, because we're almost to the end here. If you guys have any questions, and I know people are coming in and out, if you're watching this in replay, put them in the chat, and we will answer them. But I don't know. Professor Evil, how can we be evil? What do you think?
I think that one of the ways that you could be evil is by, this has been in existence for a couple of years, and now it's even easier to do, unfortunately, when it comes to non-consensual pornography or revenge porn, right? Taking somebody's likeness and superimposing it on a porn video and releasing it out there. Still, a lot of people don't know that this can be done, and they're going to assume that what they see is right. And this is where people's reputations and lives can be ruined. That's a huge, that's a huge thing. Or creating a fake video where somebody, let's say a high-level executive is accepting a bribe, for example, right, and saying, "Oh yeah, behind the scenes," and then releasing that,
turning me into evil.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bunch of ways of doing that. That sort of thing. Misusing content. We said not getting permission for disclosure and then sharing it and then infiltrating into some of these programs to make sure that the information is so disseminated that you can't get it back. This is, AI is going to be a fertile playground for people that have little or no ethics, or that really, really have evil intent. And I think it's going to be so important for all of us to say we're not going to participate in that. We're going to go into this with two eyes open, and that we're going to reject anything or any organization or company or brand that we think is even involved in this sort of thing. We just have to take a very, very hardline response to that.
Yeah, I also think that some other ideas I have here are that what you see here is turning, stealing somebody's identity and using it as a meme or as a thing. And we already are doing this, right? So this is obviously very bad because I'm not a really great Photoshopper. But on the other hand, I was able to take this and put it in here and make a cute little video. And you look cute as a hairless dog. I kind of like you that way. Professor Eva.
What are you trying to tell me here? What are you trying to tell me here, Kami? What are you trying to tell me here?
As we slash budgets, that's one of the things people are afraid of, is losing their job. So one thing is turning over your entire communications department to AI. I think that's evil because you are going to pay for it in huge amounts as in reputation in the future. So I love it when people cut something and then, they have a lot of incidents afterwards. Well, that's what you're going to get to. I guess X comes to mind for me, or the formerly known as Twitter. The first thing they did was, fire their entire communications department, and then they
eviscerate the entire company, and then people ended up having to sleep on mattresses because there's only 2 employees left. Yeah, exactly.
But similar things could happen. Like if you say, hey, we don't need PR and marketing anymore, we can just turn on an AI and get an intern to come in and enter the data. The other thing is scraping. So one of the things that I think that AI is, going to continue to do, and there's tools that are coming out now where you can put in, I just got one and I can't remember the name of it at the moment because I haven't really played with it yet. But you take that, you take a URL, you put it in it, and it will scrape all the data for you, and it will turn it into, a personal AI for you, right? So I know that ChatGPT just released personal AIs. for brands. What's great about that is that you can create something internal to your company. Cluzo, which is one of the ones that I know about and like and use. It's on AppSumo right now, but basically you can create an AI for your own brand, which I think is not evil. But then if you go to somebody else's brand and like scrape all their information, that is evil. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think about all that? I'll put the names of all of these. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to have to go out to LinkedIn to give you guys the
I think at some point, I mean, at some point, the law is always 10 steps behind, although people are really trying to expedite things now when it comes to AI. But at some point, I mean, like the scraping and all of this it's going to go in the realm of, corporate theft, corporate espionage, that sort of thing. And there's probably going to be some liability and some punitive measures around that, both financial and both civil and criminal is what I was trying to say. And I think that's a good thing, because you just because, I've been saying this for, over 20 years now, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I think that's the idea of AI here. It is a wonderful playground right now. Everybody who's listening to this, especially if you're a professional communicator, you cannot wait and say, well, I'll figure this out next year or the year after, whenever. You need to go play with these things right now, so you have a baseline familiarity for how they work, what they do, what they don't do. Probably one of the easiest things is the free version of ChatGPT or Bard. Go out there and play with it. I know Kami's been doing this for like a super long time. She talks about this in her live streams a lot. Watch her old videos. She'll walk you through how it works. But go and play with it. You absolutely need to do that. And then as you become more familiar with it, you're going to discover really amazing tools. But then also, like we said, make sure you use it responsibly, and then you'll also be able to craft your privacy and AI privacy policy a little bit better, because you're going to have a first person experience of what it feels like, not just some indirect assessment.
Like what we did with Claude today. We took the PRSA PDF code of ethics and we put it into Claude, and we showed you how I thought through that for this episode. So I mean, do that too for yourself. I mean, Claude 2 is free for you, so it's you can go grab that. I put the names in the chat. I don't think that they worked in LinkedIn, so I will come to LinkedIn and put them in the chat in LinkedIn natively in a few minutes here. So check back. But Claude is CLAUDE 2, like the number 2, and just put that in Google and it will take you directly there. So I think that we're at the end. We are at 10 o'clock, so we need to quit because I don't want to overdo this. And we have to listen to it later too. Turn it in. We're going to turn this into a blog post, as we always do. And you can watch this on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter X thing. I'm not sure much longer we'll do that, but we're doing that still. And so yeah, we're definitely in all of the places that you want to be. So we would love for you to subscribe or follow us wherever you're watching this. Or definitely like it and share it, because I think it's really important that communicators get this information and start to put it in place. I just want to thank you so much, Andrea, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to help us, to kind of lead us along through this path and have this conversation that you and I, this is like a conversation we have in the back end, by the way, guys.
Yeah, we do. And if anybody wants to find me on LinkedIn, Kami, I think you shared my contact information in there. I would love to connect with folks about this or anything else in the communications field. But thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh, we love it. Yeah. So definitely go into our description of this video and click on the LinkedIn for Andrea and make sure you guys connect up with her, because she's so smart and she has so much to offer. And yeah, I just really have, I've always been blessed to have her as a friend and as a colleague. And so thank you so much, Andrea, for being here today. All right, guys, take care and have an amazing week. We'll see you next week.